professor at the University of Kansas was forced to resign after a number of students did not like the way she talked about her own white privilege while using the N-word. Now, keep in mind that these students felt that she was being racially insensitive, even though she was discussing her own flaws and her own limitations when it comes to talking about race relations. Let me give you the details. Now, they're having a discussion about race relations, about white privilege, and this professor basically says, look, there are certain things that I've gone through that a lot of people have had to go through, right? I haven't had to experience the N-word, but she actually said it written on the walls, right? Like spray painted on walls and things like that. The students, some of which are black, some of which are not black, took offense to the fact that she used that word, even in that context. So they put out a letter saying that they would like this professor to resign. The letter said the following: we students in the class began discussing possible ways to bring these issues up in our classes when Communications 930 instructor Dr. Andrea Quenette abruptly interjected with deeply disturbing remarks. Those remarks began with her admitted lack of knowledge of how to talk about racism with her students because she is white. As a white woman, I just never have seen the racism. It's not like I see nigger spray painted on walls, she said. So that angered them, and that's the reason why they wanted her to step down. And I am enraged by the fact that the administration seems to be standing behind these students who apparently do not understand what context means and actually want to hinder dialogue that needs to happen on college campuses.
If you shut that down, then how are you going to have the conversation that makes things better, right?
I cannot handle it at this point. I'm enraged by this story, okay?
Look, college is supposed to be an environment where we all learn together, challenge each other, have conversations. So now, on the other hand, we're the guys who defend the University of Missouri students. So let's talk about the context of each, right? At the University of Missouri, the N-word was being used against and hurled at black students from people who were, I believe they were not coming in from out of the campus and saying that, guys in a pickup truck, et cetera. And the students were justifiably saying, hey, how can we prevent this, right? Because this is not a theoretical exercise.
Right.
This is someone actually calling me the N-word, right? And in a lot of places and times, they actually literally didn't feel physically safe, right? And you might not feel safe if a bunch of guys in a pickup truck are yelling that at you as they're driving by and doing God knows what else. Okay, so in that context, the administration doesn't take them seriously enough, and then there are a series of protests, et cetera. Then we're on the student side, because if you're on a college campus, you need to be physically safe, right? And you need not to be harassed like that, and that should be taken very seriously. On the other hand, here in a classroom, you're having a discussion, right? And it's not like she's against you. She didn't use the word at anyone. In fact, she's trying to empathize. Don't take people trying to empathize and fire them, because then people will stop trying to empathize, among many other problems that you've created by shutting down all speech.
They're defeating the purpose of higher education, okay? If you are a student who is in college right now and you need the safe spaces and you need to halt conversations that make you feel uncomfortable, please, for the love of God, leave that college campus and do whatever else you want to do, right? You don't deserve an education because you have no interest in an education. Education means that you are going to be challenged. It means that you're going to be forced to think critically. It means that sometimes you'll be offended by someone else's ideas. But if you can't rely on professors to educate you, and you're going to sit there and tell a professor how you're going to educate them, you're in the wrong environment, okay? If one of my students came to me and said, I don't want to talk about that particular political issue because it makes me feel uncomfortable, well then I have no interest in teaching you. Get the hell out of my classroom. And if the administration's not going to stand behind me, I have no interest in teaching at that university. It's that simple. I want to teach. It's about education. It's about challenging ideas. And we're coddling students right now.
And in this case, both sides do it. I remember at our university, there was Republicans who were mad that there were liberal political science professors, and they would give them facts about Republican presidents, right? Now remember, back then I'm a Republican, right? And I go, okay, but let's listen, right, and see if that's true or untrue. And if he's got an opinion about Ronald Reagan, that's one thing. If he's got facts about Ronald Reagan, that's a completely different thing, right? And then there were liberals who were mad at another political science professor who used to work for Nixon and was deeply Republican. And they didn't want to hear from him, right? Neither side wanted to hear from the other side, right?
Of course.
I was crazy. I took both classes, right? Because I actually wanted to get an education and wanted to hear the two different perspectives, right? And yes, they did. The liberal professor was liberal, okay? And the conservative professor was also conservative. There's no question about it, right? Okay, so what? My brain didn't explode. I didn't become unsafe listening to the Nixon professor or the anti-Reagan professor.
Yep.
I might have even opened my mind a little bit.
Here's what happens when you're a critical thinker and when you're actually interested in being educated, when you're actually an intelligent person, right? You hear something that makes you think, and it could make you feel offended, it could make you feel good, it doesn't matter, it provokes some sort of emotion, right? And what you do is you delve deeper and look into that issue and figure out what the truth is, right? Like, not every professor says everything correctly. We're all human beings. Sometimes we make mistakes, right? But if someone is challenging you in some way, you should use that as an opportunity to educate yourself further. Look deeper into that issue, do your own research, and you learn a lot more that way. You're not going to learn if you sit in a classroom where someone's constantly telling you what you want to hear.